All right, folks, here it is. The Sundolphin American 12-foot plastic john boat review. Now, if you haven't seen my last video, the first impressions, where I just go take it out, give you my honest reaction, catch some fish, we swim off it, all that stuff, I definitely recommend it. But after spending some time on this boat, after hours and hours and fishing this morning and kind of playing with it, I definitely have a lot of thoughts. In fact, I've got multiple pages worth of thoughts in this review. Now, let's just go ahead and dive straight into it. Let's talk about the price. I picked mine up for $5.99 at Tractor Supply. That was on a sale. You're probably gonna pay, $700 realistically before taxes, $750 out the door, almost $800 after it's registered. So, I got away with $670 total with this sale. They also have a bunch of different models. Let me go ahead and tell you this right now so you're not just stuck with the American 12. They're all the same. The Pelican Intruder is the same. The Bass Pro Pond Prowler 12 is basically the same thing. Who else? West Marine just came out with their own larger water tender version. They've got the Quest Sportsman. They're all the same, and the review goes for all of them, and the prices will vary, but the discounts also go between all the different name brands. So just because you can't find a $600 Sundolphin American 12 doesn't mean you can't find a $600 Bass Pro Pond Prowler, etc. All right, I just wanted to get that out there so you guys know you have more options, and this review goes for all of them because they're all the same. Okay, so the price is really good. It's the world's cheapest john boat. Hey, get over here, boy. What are you doing? Okay, so price, I've got to give it a 10 out of 10. It's literally the world's cheapest john boat. It doesn't get better. And we're going to talk about a lot of things I really don't like about this boat. And we are going to compare it to the pontoon style boats just a little bit, but that'll be its own video. So the price, I got to give it a 10 out of 10. It doesn't get cheaper than this. I wish that you could buy $600-700 aluminum, brand new 12 foots. But the fact is that aluminum is simply more expensive. You're not going to beat the price. Yes, I wish it was aluminum, but honestly, I'm going to make it plastic versus aluminum because this does have some distinct benefits and things I like better. Plus, it just looks cool. But the price, definitely a 10 out of 10. Now let's talk about these rod holders. These come with 4 rod holders. Doesn't matter which brand, model, make you get, baby. You're getting 4 rod holders, but they're pretty bad. In fact, they are pretty terrible. The only part of the rod that actually gets held in is the butt. So, and look, they're pretty flimsy too, if I'm being honest. Just like a little rubber piece. So it's not the end of the world, but I have found that really it's just simply perfect for your net. So the net's definitely absolutely 4 net holders, 4 rod holders. You can get away with it. I'm using them today. They work, but I'm definitely going to be installing my own permanently fixed rod holders. I like the positioning, but we're going to save these for the nets because the rod holders, well, they're simply not rod holding the way I wish they would. Let's talk about the flooring. This is my biggest issue with this boat right now. The flooring, although, listen, it kind of needs to be this way because when water gets in, sand gets in, I had blood from a fish, it pools under there and my feet don't have to dip into it when I'm laying coolers and stuff and all that crap. It's kind of elevated so the water can pool down there, which I greatly appreciate. That's awesome. But it is really, really, really uncomfortable to stand on. It makes this boat, which is already less stable than the pontoon platforms, it just makes it that much more difficult to stand on. So I much prefer standing on the seats because this thing, I've got pretty decent sized feet and it's all wonky, it's all messed up. Easy fix. We're going to do either aluminum or treated plywood flooring here with some cool decking on it. But the floor is really tough to stand on and these kind of actually give way. They're not super strong, but they're also here for rigidity. So I understand why they're here, but I will say the Pond Prowler floor is significantly better and these are pretty uncomfortable. And basically everybody universally just covers it or decks it or does something about this pretty quickly. So that's another mod that we're going to get into rather quick. Let's check our notes here. Okay, let's talk about the benches. So the benches are actually really nice. They're a good height. I don't feel too cramped. I will be adding a seat to this one. I'm gonna leave that one because I do really like standing on it. That's the thing with these benches. They're styrofoam and wood reinforced. So not only can you drill into it and really fix a good boat seat, you can stand on them, jump around. I've jumped from this to this. Stay tuned for the stability test because I will be jumping from bench to bench to this and I will be putting it through the ringer. But point being is the benches are really solid, really sturdy, and they can seriously you can clamp on seats or you can just drill directly directly into it. But rest assured, the benches are solid, they will hold your weight, and you can stand on them no problem. So that is a major, major plus. All right, now let's move on to the stability, and this is what most people want to hear about. So it's pretty stable, more stable than I thought it was. You're gonna see me kind of wobbling around a little bit, but honestly, I don't really pay much attention, so I make things less stable than they need to be. But if I'm gonna flat out answer your question, yeah, it's a 12-foot john boat. If you've been in a 12-foot john boat, it's a 12-foot john boat, but it is less stable than the Pond Prowler. But it's also not the most fair comparison. Hi, little bait fish. It's also not the most fair comparison because this gives you the freedom to really push it up against the side of the beam. And also, it's not a pontoon. So the Prowlers and the Bass Raiders and the Quest Anglers and all those fun boats, you know, I own a Pond Prowler, and I can tell you right now, it is way more stable, but not just because of the pontoons, because it's so much more narrow and it keeps your weight in the center. This, it gives me the freedom to really push it, but I've not once felt like I was going to flip, and I'm, you know, walking all over this thing, jumping around. And stay tuned, like I said again, for the stability test, because we are going to see what it takes to flip this bad boy. All right, I want to go ahead, now that you've kind of got the main features out of the way, I do kind of want to go over some specs real quick. So this boat weighs 110 pounds, which is about the same as the Prowler, and it's going to be either the same or actually lighter than most aluminum boats, depending on what you get. And it also has a place where you can bow mount a trolling motor. This is rated for a 40-pound thrust. Now, personally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some aluminum and I'm going to drill it in, and we're going to reinforce this plastic a little bit. But I have a 46-pound thrust trolling motor, but it's going to be just fine. We talked about in the last video how the U.S. Coast Guard safety standards are simply safety standards, but hey, we send it, baby. So this is rated for a 40-pound thrust, and this is rated, back here, this transom is rated for a 6 horsepower. So you can do 40 pounds thrust up front, which realistically, come on, you could do more, and 6 horsepower in the back, which is basically double the power you can get on comparable pontoon boats. All right, so another feature, this is kind of a spec, kind of a feature, but I wanted to include it. It does have the bow eye, which makes it really, really convenient for trailering. I really, really appreciate that feature. This is what helps me pull my boat out of the water on the trailer and keeps it doing what it needs to do whenever I'm launching and all that fun stuff. So that's just a small little feature. All right. Also, one thing I like about it is there's just simply a lot of room. I like how much room there is compared to other small boats. You know, 10 foot's too small. 14 foot, it's harder to store. 12 foot is, first of all, that's the only size that they sell in these plastic boats. But it is really the perfect size because you can still fit it in the bed of your truck. You know, 14 foot is pushing it. But most people, they actually put these in the bed of their truck. I have a trailer just because I have one and I use it, and it's only a 5x8 utility trailer, so it's still not perfect, but it does the job. But a lot of people can simply stick this in the bed of their truck, and that is a major game changer in terms of storage and portability because you don't actually need a trailer. And you get plenty of room. So I really do think it's the perfect size. The 10 foot I would not be so interested in because I have a 10-foot pontoon boat and I'm just simply, you know, it's too tight. It's flat out too tight. They're tiny boats, but this one has plenty of room. And my wife appreciates how she has a place for her big stupid Stanley Cup. Anyway. Another thing I want to mention is there is no cleats. There are 0 cleats that come on this boat, which is a little bit surprising because they are super, super cheap. But it's no problem. I could spend $20 on some half decent cleats. Cleats good enough to hold a boat of this weight, which is basically nothing. You can see it just bobbing around in the wind, which is another issue that I found is the wind, which is just going to get worse when we put a bimini top on it tomorrow, but that's all right. Anyway, no cleats. So if you do want to tie up to a dock, tie up to a different boat, if you want to do anything that requires cleats, drop anchor, shallow water, a spike, anything like that, well, you're going to have to install your own, which is not a big deal. Stay tuned. We'll make a tutorial on how to install your own cleats. Super quick and easy for super cheap. It's just the same way you install any plastic on or you install any part on a plastic boat using screws. It's the same method. It's really cheap and easy. But there are no cleats, so that is something to keep in mind. Also, since it is a flat bottom, it does move fairly quickly through the water compared to the V-hole styles as well as the pontoon styles. Oh, great. My fish finder is the shallow water alarm keeps going off. I'm a flats fisherman. I don't know why I even have that on there. but there are no carry handles. My Pond Prowler came factory with 2 stern-mounted carry handles, which was super helpful. This one, not so much. Little pinfish are so curious. There's little pinfish everywhere around here for some reason. They're just checking me out. They're not bothered by me at all. But yeah, there's no real way to carry it. You just kind of have to lift it and hope you got a good grip. And if it's wet, good luck. But so that's just one more thing to bring up there. No carry handles. So you are getting a really good price, but you are actually losing quite a few features that come standard on the more expensive pontoon style boats, but that's all right. Okay, another gripe that I have, and this is a plastic versus aluminum thing, is when you have an aluminum boat, the floor is kind of sunken in, so that way it goes under the benches, and if you get water up here, it pools all the way into the transom and to the transom plug, which is super helpful. But with this, as you can see, there's no pass-through. So you're gonna have to drain each individual compartment on its own. Now, not really a big deal. I haven't taken on water. I don't really take it out in big, nasty swells anyway. But it is something to mention, but a quick and easy solution is a manual bilge pump, which I will link below. A manual bilge pump, you just stick it in there, it puts out a ton of water the second you want it to, and it does the job very, very well. So I highly recommend a manual bilge pump in case something does happen. You're bringing in a bunch of fish, you get a little bit more water than you want. Maybe it starts raining, maybe someone spills something big, live well spills, who knows? It's just nice to have that. It's just kind of a safety deal in an emergency paddle. Definitely keep one of those. But we'll talk about the top 5 John boat accessories coming up that you need to know to be safe. Safety accessories. All right. Another thing I want to mention is the rigidity of it. Everything feels really good, but if you stand up on it and you put your foot over there on the gunnel, well, it's going to flex a little bit. It's a little bit flimsy, this boat is. But the nice thing about it is I can just kind of, like, you see how I'm moving it right there? That's just the nature of the beast, man. It's a plastic boat, but I also can bump up against bridges. I bump up against my buddies' boats. I bump up against seawalls, docks. Like, it just doesn't matter. It's flexible. It's soft. And I'm simply not worried about it. So it's kind of a, at least it's not rigid. It's not going to break something. It's got a little bit of a flex, kind of absorbs me crashing into stuff when I'm not paying attention catching fish. So not the biggest deal, but it is a plastic boat. And that is a trade-off that you're going to have if you, not going with aluminum. But, obviously it works just fine. All right, I think really, overall, those are my main thoughts. We've talked about all the features. We've talked about lack of features. We've talked about quirky things between plastic and aluminum. And overall, I think I've covered everything that I want to cover. Now, overall, let's say the Pond Prowler is the scale, the Bass Raider, the Quest Angler, all those plastic pontoon boats. Let's say that's the scale, right? That's the baseline. So I would give, for the price, for the product, the Pond Prowler, really, I would give it a solid 8 out of 10. If you haven't seen any of my videos on that or any of my reviews or any of my gripes or complaints, I've countless videos on my Pond Prowler, which I still own and love. So if that's an 8 out of 10, I'm gonna give this one a solid 7 out of 10. Now, if it was the same price, I'm sorry, I'd have to probably give it a 6. But since it is $100 cheaper, sometimes $200 cheaper. I mean, this is like $400 or $500 cheaper than the Bass Raider NXE or whatever, the top rated one with the fancy seats. So I'm gonna give this a solid 7 out of 10. But if we're just comparing it in its own right, just as a boat for the price, listen, folks, I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. What else are you gonna get for $600 that can smash some flats, that can bridge fish, that can put a 6 horsepower motor on, that can fit in the bed of your truck, that can sit up sideways in your house or in your garage, that is completely portable? Like, you can't really beat it for $600. I'm thinking about boats that are $10, $15, $100, $200,000. My buddy's looking at buying a $200,000 twin engine, and I just spent $600 on this thing, and I'm catching fish, baby. So really, I am a big fan of this boat. There are some drawbacks. There are some drawbacks of it being plastic, but there are also a lot of benefits. The aluminum John boats, they don't come with rod holders. They don't come with a place that you can mount a trolling motor. They don't come with a lot of different stuff. We got some jumping mullet, folks. Okay, anyway, that is my review. Huge fan of it. Definitely recommend it. And stay tuned because we are going to stress test it. We are going to do a stability test. We're going to do all sorts of fishing videos. We're going to install Bimini Tops accessories, all that fun stuff. Hit like and subscribe. There's too much fish activity. I'm going to put the phone down and I'm going to keep fishing. Also, check out this sailboat. If you haven't seen my full video exploring that on the Pond Prowler, definitely check it out. My wife was with me and it was quite entertaining. Anyway, happy boating, tight lines, and God freaking bless, baby.